Title 43 RCW.
With the consent of the House, the bill will be substituted as recommended by the Appropriation Committee. Hearing no objection, so ordered. There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules be suspended, and second substitute House Bill 1528 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Second substitute House Bill 1528 on third reading and final passage remarks. The good lady from the 32nd, Representative Davis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Of the people who die every year in our state from a preventable overdose, of the people who are incarcerated in our jails and prisons due to addiction, of the individuals who are living in homeless encampments in our communities, they have something in common. With very few exceptions, they were all, at one point, in recovery, and we failed to help keep them in recovery. There are three parts of the continuum of care for substance use disorder: prevention, treatment, and recovery. In recent years, the state has made some important investments in prevention and treatment, but we cannot fight the opioid epidemic, Madam Speaker, by investing in only two legs of a three-legged stool. It would be like investing in surgery and not physical therapy and blaming the surgery for not working. Recovery supports include everything that help a person remain in long-term recovery when they complete treatment. Chief among recovery supports is recovery housing. Madam Speaker, the low-hanging fruit and high potential return on investment in addressing the opioid epidemic is helping people who are in early recovery remain in recovery long-term. It doesn't take much, Madam Speaker, to break a person in early recovery. A person can leave treatment and want recovery so badly. They can want it with everything that they have, with all that they are, with all the breath and the life within them. But if we discharge them from treatment homeless, or we discharge them to an unethical recovery home, it can break them. These are people who had exactly one coping skill: using drugs and alcohol. And we discharge them from treatment with a backpack full of every problem that ever led them to use in the first place, and we tell them they can't use the only coping skill they had. Recovery housing provides accountability and peer support that is necessary for long-term recovery. A person's likelihood of remaining in long-term recovery is substantially higher if they live in recovery housing, and current demand for recovery housing outpaces supply 3-to-1. Madam Speaker, this bill is intended to increase both the quantity and quality of recovery housing in our communities, and I encourage your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good lady from the 39th, Representative Eslick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to the good lady from the 32nd. This is an amazing bill. 448 days today, my niece is sober. She is in a safe and sober house. She sends us every week a picture of herself and what day it is. And that's how they count these days. That's how they count the sobriety. Safe and sober. This is the only way to help our folks recover. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good gentleman from the 15th, Representative Defoe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know this issue touches so many of the lives of the members in this body and our constituents at home. It's very refreshing to see a public servant as passionate and as knowledgeable on a subject as the good lady from the 32nd, and I would encourage this entire body's support.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good gentleman from the 2nd, Representative Farkas.
It was much easier when I think I was in the front row. You could see me easier. I'll be back here standing. Imagine, if you will, you just finished up 4 or 5 weeks in a program. You've been facing your demons. You've conquered some. You still have others to do. You get your coin. You get your hugs. You grab your backpack full of your stuff. And then you walk out on the corner and you stand and wait for a ride because you have nowhere to go. The ride that might come and get you is the person who you left 4 or 5 weeks ago as you embarked on your journey to get clean. Sometimes that's the only person that you know. It's the only person in your contact list. And it's a person that promises you great things and a house and will support you 100% in your recovery. But the reality of it is, they're probably not going to. It's a cycle Madam Speaker, that continues over and over again. And as a good lady from the 32nd said, one of the key components to successful recovery is housing. It's one of the pieces in the continuum of care that we're going to hear a lot about this session, a piece that is so critical, a piece that is missing, because we have great treatment, we have great programs, but these people come out and they need to take the next step. They need to be embraced into an environment that is clean, that is safe, and that will help them continue their journey as they choose. This bill does a lot of great things, and I encourage its support. And one of the other things it does that wasn't mentioned is that there are the flip side that we don't hear about. On the good side, we have facilities such as the Oxford House, which is a great organization that provides safe, clean, sober environments for so many here in our local communities. But there are also those who set up these businesses to offer these type of housing that are maybe not the best places to be. For you see, a lot of the people that come out of those recovery have the funds that they provided by the state to help them with their temporary housing, and there are all too many people that are willing to take that money but maybe not provide the best clean, safe, and sober environment. And so this bill will help by establishing that registration, by establishing those parameters so that it is assured that when that person standing on the corner with their backpack, when the ride comes and picks them up and takes them to a clean and sober facility in the state of Washington, that they will be able to have a pathway to recovery. I encourage this body's support.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good lady from the 36th, Representative Tarleton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this legislation. I am so grateful to the good lady from the 32nd District for joining us in this body and bringing her knowledge and compassion and her commitment to all of those who struggle. I have a sister as well as a nephew who have struggled with addiction their whole lives, and they live in Massachusetts. They had access to these kinds of support services. They could come out of treatment, go into recovery, and they are still sober years later. My nephew came out of recovery 2 years ago and is now a master plumber and living in a safe, secure home with my sister and her husband, a different sister. I have 4 of them. And I just know that my sister and my nephew are alive today because they had access to these kinds of support. And I am so grateful that we get to vote on this piece of legislation today. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good gentleman from the 9th District, Representative Schmick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I think that it is good policy here. I'm concerned whether or not we have adequate safeguards around this. As we first saw this bill in the first time in the committee, there was quite a bit of expense, which that has been taken out, but that doesn't remove the obligation in the future. And so I think there's some on our side of the aisle that are concerned whether or not we have enough and the proper safeguards as we move ahead, despite the fact that the policy is good. And so we have those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks. Seeing none, the question brief, the good gentleman from the 13th, Representative Dent.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a good bill. But people who go into recovery, people who want to get sober, who want to get clean, have to have some level of motivation. There has to be a reason they're there. And that, that's the key piece. But that being said, they need to have the proper support group when they get there. So for someone to get clean and sober and then go hang out with folks that have no clue what they've been through in their life, they won't stay there. They can't stay there because they need to have that connection with the folks that know what it's like to be there. So people who go to recovery, alcoholics, drug addicts, whatever, they get there because they hit a bottom. And the bottom can be high, it can be low, it can be whatever. And the ones sometimes that go the lowest have the hardest time coming back because they have nothing. They lost it all. Sometimes the folks that didn't go quite as far down still have their business, still have their family, still have their homes. And it's maybe easier for them because they have a built-in support group. But the ones that went farther down, they're the ones that need what we're doing here. They really need that. And they need the connection with the folks that have been there. And it's so important to have those, the peer folks inside these facilities that can relate, can understand, and to know what they're feeling, to know where they've been, and they can help them through that. Because once they get clean and sober, it's not over. That's just the beginning of the journey, and the journey will last the rest of their life if we want them to stay there. And so giving them that support, giving them that initial step up is so important that we do that. Because if we don't, they'll be right back where they were. So I encourage a yes vote on this.
Thank you. Additional remarks? The good gentleman from the 13th, Representative Jenkins, 16th, sorry.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would like to share something with this body because I really feel that there needs to be more than one way to get people sober, off drugs, or whatever their addiction may be. And this is one of those ways. I'll share the story that happened to me personally 42 years ago when I was going to college. I went to a party school, and I really learned how to party. I think fortunately, in my case, got 2 drunk drivings before I was old enough to drink. And so you're on your way to a bad thing in life. I had my father to watch who went through all kinds of these recovery things, and finally that stuck. But when it happens to you, you have that, and he's deceased now, and I can look at him and I can say that's what he gave me, was the opportunity to understand what my situation was. In my situation, it was not a recovery house, but it was an opportunity to relieve myself on that second drunk driving. It was called Lucky Deuce, because at that time it was 502s. So this program, and that's all that it was a program, but to me it worked, and I haven't drank in that 42 years since. And the reason why it worked, and it was just an option, was that when you walked into the group, and you're there, the court orders you there, and there's a big picture, and it has all these pictures of the winners, the ones that got through the program, 2.5-year program. And so it shows the winners. On the other side of the board, it showed the losers. And none of us want to be a loser. So it was just that fact that you wanted to be a winner. And it worked. So I really appreciate this bill, because it's one of the many options that's going to help solve the problem with drug abuse or whatever have you. So I'm in total support. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks? Seeing none, the question before the House is final passage of second substitute House Bill 1528. The Speaker is about to open the roll call machine. The Speaker has opened the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Would any member like to change their vote? The Speaker is about to lock the roll call machine. The Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Madam Speaker, there are 98 yeas, 0 nays, 0 excused.
Have received a constitutional majority. Second